Welcome to another episode on the channel. In today's video, the Beetle is getting new floor pans. So let's get started. As you saw in past videos, there's a little bit of Swiss cheese going on in the floor pan. So up on the driver's side, we got a hole there, pretty decent hole back here. The passenger side front portion, it's not bad. It doesn't have any holes in it. And the back, it's got a hole in it, but surprisingly under the battery, it doesn't have a hole. This is the original floor pan, so it has held up decently well considering how old the car is, but it helps being in South Carolina almost its entire life. So here's the kit I'm going to be using. It was another J-Bugs purchase. These are the premium floor pans. They're heavier gauge steel. Comes with the left and the right complete floor pans. Also the front seat mounts, along with some other brackets here. I'm not going to be using these pieces. Mine aren't rotted out. And the jack posts, those are part of the structure on the 79, so those are fine on my car. So we'll just be using the seat mounts and the pans. So before I start cutting and chopping or doing anything else, I'm going to go ahead and sand the parts that I'm going to be using, because it'll be a lot easier to do that when they're out of the car. And to do that, I'm just using some red Scotch-Brites just to rough everything up. I've got both floor pans and the seat brackets sanded down. I've got a nice dull finish here. I wiped them down with just a damp cloth to get the dust off. So now we're ready to remove a few components in here before we start cutting. So I need to pull out the pedal assembly. I need to move some of these cables. I'm going to see how difficult it is to pull this plastic heater duct out, just so that I've got a little more room to get to the top side of the pan back here. And then obviously the battery has to come out. And then I'm going to be cutting right about here along the whole edge. So I need to make sure that the brake line is out of the way, so I can unclip it and move it up out of the way. But I mean, the floor pan, it's got some holes in it, but the heater channel is perfect. This is really a solid car. So it's just every one of these rusts out, even though it's from a southern climate. All right, I'm ready to start cutting. I've got all of the wires and cables out of the way. The brake line is up, out of the way. I've got the heat control cables out of the way. So we should be okay to go. And the gift that keeps on giving here with this car. So when I pulled the pedal cluster out, a bunch of brake fluid came out of the boot. So master cylinder's bad. So I need to replace that. And I did notice when I was doing some other work under the car previously, that some of the rubber lines for the brakes were a little dry rotted. So I guess we'll replace all of that too. And I guess I will pull the drums off of it to make sure that the wheel cylinders aren't leaking and to see what kind of shape the shoes are in. That'll be in a different video when I get to some mechanics, but I probably will replace the master cylinder while the pedal cluster's out, just because less stuff in the way. But I guess we will start cutting. Now, what I will be cutting is an important question. So in the front, I'm going to be cutting along this seam here, and we're cutting down this seam pretty much the whole way back. And it gets a little trickier back here, I think. We'll see. I think I just cut along this seam here, but I'll verify that. Definitely want to make sure we don't cut too much. Now for the jack points, you can see, at least on my 79 convertible, there's a structure that runs across there along the rocker, and it's integrated into that, so I don't have to attach it to the floor pan. I'm at a good stopping point for the day. I've got the floor pan cut out. I've got the little strip of the original floor pan chiseled off, and I've got that wire brushed. And from sitting in a pool of water for a while, I guess, let me turn on the light. A little better. I guess from sitting in a pool of water for a little while, the brake line from here to about there is pretty crusty, and from bending it, I popped a hole in it. So I'll have to see if my neighbor has a brake line flare kit, and then I can replace just this section instead of replacing the whole thing. The rest of it's in really good shape, so there's no sense in replacing the whole thing. And in general, the car is in really solid condition. So just from water laying in here, the paint kind of bubbled up here. So I just took the wire brush, took that surface rust off, and I'll spray some Rust-Oleum on it before I put everything back together. And if we look under the car at the heater channels, looking up underneath, this is a very solid old car. A little bit of flaky paint. I already wire brushed under here, but very, very solid car. So again, I'll Rust-Oleum under here and the inside of this lip before I put the pan in, and then once the pan is in there, the pan will get painted as well. So this will be a very clean, very solid car once everything is finished up. Day 2, so before I put the floor pan in, I'm going to replace this section of brake line. If you're interested in seeing that, you can check it out in a different video where I'm going over the mechanicals of this thing. I want to try to get all of the dirty stuff done today, so I've got the brake line repaired on the driver's side. I'm going to come in and cut out the passenger side floor pan and wire brush everything and paint the underside of the heater channel like I did on the driver's side. And that way tomorrow I can start trimming and fitting the pans. Progress update. So the passenger side, the heater channel has been wire brushed and painted. This side is very solid as well. Just a little bit of light rust, and with it painted, we'll never have to worry about that again. So now we'll start trimming our floor pans. I'm going to start with the driver's side while the passenger rail dries, and it does need to be trimmed down. So what I did, I came in and measured from the center of the hole over and then added about 15 millimeters. And then I've marked it in tape and then took a pencil and marked the lines and then just went down to each one to get the offset. So that should give 15 millimeters of an overlap. And in the front, since this is kinked in the middle, the measurement from the seat rails won't be right. So I measured off of the threaded insert here. So this is actually the right length to the front of it. I just need to notch in about 10 millimeters for the underside of the car where we had to cut this off. The back is a little trickier. I came in with the reciprocating saw and cut it out, and then I had to grind it back a little bit. So I added more around this corner. So we'll see how that fits. But it's easier to take it off than to try to add it. So if it's a little bit too long, that should be fine. Another thing to note in the back, I will have to notch this out because this hole is still on the car. I'll have to get some measurements and maybe scribe it or something when I have it in the car, but this will have to be notched out. And I'll probably have to slice it maybe about here. And then I think I'll have to bend this back lip straight up and down. That way I can slide in the inside and the front, and then the whole thing will just lift up in the backs. With it, the way it is now, having to trying to slide in 3 sides, I don't think that's gonna work very well. So I can slide in 2 of them and then lift it straight up, I think. And then once I have it bolted in, I can bend this lip back down and weld it. Well, it took a lot of trimming, but I've got it in here. It's just sitting in there at the moment. And it should work just as I had planned. Everything's overlapped to the back. I can bolt it along the outsides, and I may need to tack it in a few spots just to hold it, and then I can take a hammer and knock the back edge down against the original edge of the floor pan. So for tonight, I'm gonna pull it out, and then I will spray paint the top edge where the body seal sits. That way it can sit overnight, and then tomorrow morning I can glue the body seal into place and put this side in, and then it'll just be duplicated on the passenger side. The passenger side went very smooth. I made the first major cut and bent the back edge up, and then put it in once, made a couple marks, trimmed up 3 spots, and it's in here perfectly now. Now you may be wondering about having the car sitting here without any support structure and having the floor pans out of it, But the floor pans are not structural in this car, so the outer rail and the spine in the center are the structural members of the car. You can see when we close the door, it opens and closes perfectly. There's no drooping or anything. Same on the driver's side. And the doors open and close perfectly. So there's no concern about pulling the floor pans out of it. The only thing to keep in mind is you need to have the jack stands back far enough that you can get the floor pans out from the middle of it. So I've got it on the shock mounts in the back, and then on the back side of kind of that T structure. Next step, I will pull the passenger side pan out of it and do what I did on the driver's side last night, which is paint the upper edge, and then once that dries, put the rubber seal on it and glue it in place so it doesn't move. Now on the driver's side, the paint is dry. I'm waiting for the adhesive to dry a little bit more so the seal doesn't move, and then I'll cut out holes for the bolts, and I'll grind down the edges that get welded, and then this one will be ready to go in. Well, the driver's side floor pan is in and welded. It's been wire brushed, it's been wiped down, so it is ready for seam sealer. And we are not going to critique my welds. They may not be the prettiest, but they are in there and robust. The floor pan is not going anywhere. Now, I really would recommend that you take out the duct that's in here, like I did here. So if you don't, you're gonna have a tough time welding back here and seam sealing. So definitely take that out. It only takes a few minutes to unbolt the duct coming from under the car and slide it back enough that you can pull this out. And after I seam seal it, I will put this tube back in. It's welded in one spot there. I just want it out of the way so I can seam seal around here a little easier. So let's go ahead and take a look at the supplies. You can use your seam sealer of choice, obviously. I found this on Amazon. It was pretty reasonably priced. And then I'm going to use a paintbrush with some mineral spirits on it just to smooth it out. Seam sealing is complete on the driver's side. I'm gonna let this sit for a couple hours just to make sure all of the mineral spirits dry off and it skins over pretty well. And you don't have to worry about this looking perfect. As you can see, like the factory stuff back there, it's a mess. So just kind of smooth it out and it'll be covered with paint so you won't really notice it. Paint and carpet, that'll all be hidden. So I think this came out pretty nice. And the passenger side one, it's been outside drying in the sun for most of the day, so it's ready to go in. I don't think I need to record that. You've seen how the driver's side went in, so passenger side is the same thing. Driver and passenger side are done, seam sealed, sanded, so we're ready for paint once this dries. I've got 24 hours before the seam sealer cures to where I have to sand it. So I've got time tomorrow morning. I can get the seat mounts welded in and get that all prepared, and then I can paint the interior and that'll be done. The interior floor, anyway, is ready for paint. I've got everything taped up out of the way. I've got everything wiped down. I've got my floor mounts in. For the seats, I would highly recommend that you get your seats and set them in here and kind of match mount the front mounts, because taking measurements off of the old one was not close to where the aftermarket ones needed to be. So this attachment point and the slide area here is not quite the same as the original one. So it needed to be over a little bit and it needed to be turned so that the slide on the seat would work properly in the front mount. So again, I would definitely recommend that you put these in and make sure the seat works, because you really don't want to have to adjust it after you paint everything. I just finished the second coat, and I think this came out pretty nice. This is all going to be, pretty much all of this is covered with carpet. The only thing you'll see is the mount, but that'll be under the seat, and this is all covered with the back seat. And I'm going to get some sound deadening material, put it up here and back here. That'll be covered with carpet. But I think overall this came out pretty nice, considering it's my first time putting in floor pans. I've done rockers and stuff like that with Dad, but I've never done floor pans by myself. So it doesn't take a lot of skill, just a lot of time. But yeah, that came out pretty nice. So we'll let this dry outside for a few more minutes, get it tacky so we don't get any dirt falling in it. And then I'll push it back in the garage and we'll start on the underside. I've got the underside sanded, wire brushed, wiped down, so it's ready for seam sealer. I'll come in and go along the edges of the spine, and then along here and on the outside. If we take a look back here, I found something interesting. I hit this control arm with the wire brush and it took it down to black paint. So what I thought was rust is actually, it appears to be just dirt. So I'm curious how well all of this suspension will clean up if I just take some sort of maybe heavy duty cleaner and a power washer. Because this paint looks like it's in pretty good shape underneath. All right, the underside is ready for paint. The seam sealer can sit up to 24 hours before you have to sand it. So I want to make sure I get primer and paint on it before then so I don't have to sand it. But we're wiped down and ready to go. I've got all of the outside clamps removed. I'm going to wire brush and paint those separately and then put those in after this is painted. And this way we can get paint underneath where that goes. So this should look pretty nice once it's done. And the seam sealer is self-leveling, so once you take your finger or a brush and smooth it out, any fingerprints or brush strokes, those will flatten out on their own. But this should look pretty good when it's done. We'll put 2 coats of satin black Rust-Oleum on it and go from there. 2 coats of paint, and I think this came out pretty nice. Again, you don't have to worry about the seam sealer being perfectly smooth. If you look at the factory seam sealer over here, it's just kind of a splattered mess. You just smooth it out and as best as you can, it'll be fine. So that looks good. And if we move over to the paint booth, I have the floor pan washers and the bolts all wire brushed. We'll put a couple coats of paint on those, let them dry for a day or so, install that, and the floor pans will be done. I've got my clamps and bolts back in along the edge of the pan. The passenger side, I've got the evap line in that runs back here to the charcoal canister. Everything's connected. And with this, the floor pan project is done on the Beetle. This is a huge value add. Well, pretty much anybody who's looking at one of these used, the first question is, how are the floor pans? So this is a tremendous value add, and this is the first time I've done it. It took me probably, 4 days, start to finish, to get it all done, welded in, painted. So that will definitely get a return on that project. So the next thing we're gonna get to we still got to put the interior together, the exterior cleanup, got the mechanicals to go through, so that's all more videos to come. So make sure you like and subscribe to the channel to keep up with this project.